Good morning. So I think you are able to see my screen. And
yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Let's continue our discussion on the thyristor converter. So thyristor converter has many interesting features. This converter, one of the interesting thing is that I had tried to explain in the last class is that based on the rectified output voltage, what we write is V rect. It was 2 Vm by pi into cosine of alpha, where alpha was the firing angle, assuming CCM. This is the equation assuming continuous conduction mode of the inductor current, that ID is continuous. Okay, so that is enough. What shape it is there after being continuous is not important, just it has to be continuous, so that the thyristor TH1 and TH4 combination is conducting between alpha to pi plus alpha. Let me remind you again, TH1 to TH4 conducts between alpha to pi plus alpha, and TH2 TH3 will conduct from pi plus alpha to alpha, right? So this has to be ensured, and if it is ensured, then we get that the average voltage, average V rectifier voltage is equal to this. And we also know that by this time we have learned how to analyze a converter. This is the voltage after switching you are producing across the load terminal, that must be equal to the load side voltage. So load side voltage, if I want to do, load side voltage is equal to V, if I take other way of calculating V rectifier, so that is V rect. One way is this 2 Vm by pi cos alpha, other way will be that must be equal to Vc. This is the voltage, DC voltage, a battery, a DC machine, back EMF of a DC machine, etc., etc. Inductor doesn't give any DC equation, so that must be equal to ID. So you look at the way I am writing I capital D implies the average current of uh, of the uh, of the DC side. Average current is, you only know that you have to integrate from alpha to pi plus alpha and take the divided by the period. So to get the average ID into R. So that is the way these two equations are formulated. And if somebody says that I want a current of 10 ampere, I want a V voltage of, let us say um, 80 volts, and given a value of resistance R, you can first compute what is the requirement from the DC side, what is the voltage requirement from DC side for a given value of Vc, given value of load current ID, because let us say it is a battery, and battery, when you are charging, they will give you the charging current requirement of the battery. They will tell you that the battery may be charged at 10 ampere rating, and the battery voltage is, let us say, 70 volts or 48 volts or 110 volts, etc., etc. So you can easily calculate, and R will be given as a parameter. R is not a load. R is somewhat like an internal resistance. Don't take this R as load. Load, actual power consumption is happening in the battery, in the voltage source. That is the dominating thing. R is a small non-ideality in this case. It is not the same R of the buck converter. It is in series path, so it is a non-ideality, right? So this part of the voltage must be produced by the firing angle alpha, and we can calculate. We know the VAC is equal to Vm sin omega t is equal to Vm sin omega t. So we know everything. We know everything. We can calculate, and from which we can decide what firing angle would be required. We can calculate. Alpha can be calculated. calculated. Then we have told you that in the last class that alpha has a wide variation. It can vary from logically from 0 degree to 180 degree. That is the alpha variation. It can vary from 0 degree to 180 degree. And then we have seen that that when alpha is greater than equal to 90 degree, at 90 degree, when alpha is equal to 90 degree, it will give 0 voltage. But when alpha is greater than 90 degree, if alpha is greater than 90 degree, we will get V rectified average, which is less than 0. Don't be too upset about it. V rectified voltage less than 0 is also sometimes a requirement, a very good requirement. Okay, so it implies that the actual power is now flowing from the DC side to AC side. So it is called then the inverter operation. Inverter. This is called the inverter operation, when the power would be flowing from DC side to AC side. When alpha is less than 0 and the power is flowing from AC side to DC side, we will call it rectifier operation. If alpha is less than 90 degree, then we call it we get V rectifier, which is greater than 0, and we'll be calling it as a rectifier operation. So I will tell you a little more about it so that you understand it better. But let's sketch a few currents here. Let's sketch a few currents here, which may be of will give you some physical idea. So let's sketch some currents by taking a new page. So first thing is that let me draw a scale. Let me draw the sine wave here. This you can think as VAC. Let us draw a firing angle alpha here, and this is alpha, then it will end at pi plus alpha, and symmetrically it will be happening for this. So so the rectified voltage that you are getting is essentially this chunk of the voltage of the AC supply. So you are getting a voltage, 0 is here. So let me draw as good as I can draw. Yeah, descent. Now, so this is, and then right like this it will come, and here also it will be like this. So this is what is the rectified voltage, V rect, instantaneous voltage, whose average value will be V, capital V subscript rect, right? Rectifier. Rect is rectifier, right? So how is the current? We have assumed that the current in the DC side is continuous. So I am not too much bothered about the shape of the current. I only need the current to be a continuous and repetitive current. So let me take this point and let me take this point. So it is qualitatively this. Okay, at this moment I am not deciding the values at all. I am qualitatively doing this. So next is, so something like that. Maybe I am drawing badly, but okay, you get the idea. It is just a continuity of the current. That is what is current ID, DC side current ID, whose average value is capital ID, whose average value is always, I am writing it as a average value, I will write it as ID. This average value I will write it as V rect. So this is the way the two currents are flowing. That is, I have marked them. Now let us say what is the current at the input side, AC side. What is the current? So let me extend the scale.
Sir, what is the red waveform? Can you repeat again?
The red waveform can ID, DC current, meaning that this current, this is ID, this current. Got it? Hello, understood?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that is the DC current, ID. So DC current. So now I will draw a one. This is the, I will draw AC side current. So AC side current, you can see what is it. I have already written the equation. When TH1 and TH3, who is conducting here? Let me write it clearly. Let me write this thing clearly. Here, who is conducting? TH1 and TH4. And who are conducting here? This zone, this is TH2 and TH3. When TH1 and TH4 conducts, you can see our convention. You can see the convention IAC. Convention IAC says that when TH1, TH4 conducts, IAC is equal to ID. ID, see the direction of the current. Current is going like this. Current is going like this. So IAC is equal to ID. And when TH2, TH3 conducts, then IAC is equal to minus ID, right? So this is just Kirchhoff's law. I am not doing anything clever here, just Kirchhoff's law, taking the Kirchhoff's law, and I will sketch the currents. So I will sketch it in, let us say, this color. So what is that? So this zone is the, let me draw it here so that you may get a better feel of that in the AC side of the waveform. So this one, the current is this, and then just invert it, right? Only careful is that you come back to the same point, because it is periodic and it should come back to the same point. And you also are aware that it is AC current, so this area would be equal to just this area, right? This is the current waveform that we will get in the AC side. So this waveform, I call it IAC. Blue was VAC. This was VAC. This is VAC, comma IAC. Right? Right. Here also it will jump in this direction, and there will be some current. Right. So you have understood that AC current, right? AC current is nothing but, first you draw the DC current, ID. When TH1 and TH4 are on, IAC is equal to ID, has to be, by Kirchhoff's law. And when TH2, TH3 are on, then IAC is equal to minus ID, right? So ID current has is a rectified current. It has a frequency of 100 Hz. If the supply frequency is 50 Hz, it would be 100 Hz. But IAC is again a 50 Hz. It's the essential and AC current. It is not a sinusoidal current. We must forget that concept from now onwards, that a sinusoidal voltage will always produce sinusoidal current. It is not so with semiconductors. It has, and if you look at it, that's why you have studied all the things. You have studied harmonics, etc., there earlier. Why you have studied is because of this, that it may have non-sinusoidal current, even if supply source is sinusoidal. So what will be the power? I'm just telling, little bit derivation we'll do later, but common sense first must be built up. What is the power in such cases? Your power would be the integration of, as such, the basic power is average 1 by T, 0 to T, VAC into IAC. You may do half period also, right? So that is the power, which would be equal to VAC. Being sinusoidal, you don't have to do anything. So you have to just take this and the fundamental component of IAC, okay, and the phase angle between them. So you have to take the fundamental component and take the phase. We'll come to that. I'm not too much. Well, just as an observation, see how the power is flowing. The harmonics are there in the current. It is changing the value of the current. It is affecting the instantaneous current, but it is not affecting the average power flow. For average power flow, the sinusoidal component of the current only will matter. Why? Because the voltage itself is sinusoidal. You know, to different frequencies, when you integrate, you know, just sine omega t, into sine 3 omega t, its product integration if you do, then it is 0. You know that two different frequencies if you integrate, that will be 0. So therefore the current will have harmonic components. For example, third harmonic, fifth harmonic, seventh harmonic, ninth harmonic. Ninth harmonic may not be there, but no, here it will be there. Ninth harmonic, they will be there. All odd harmonics will be there. No even harmonics. Okay, because of the symmetry, no even harmonic. So there will be odd harmonics, but these odd harmonics will not contribute to the power flow. The power will be such that as if it will look like power in sometime going and sometime coming back. The thing that happens in reactive currents. The similar thing will be happening with harmonic currents. Harmonic currents instantaneously may take power from AC to DC, but within some time in the period, during some time within the period, it will send back the power back to AC from DC to AC. So it will not, on an average, it has no contribution to the power flow. The power flow is completely decided in this case. I am again repeating, since the AC supply is sinusoidal, perfectly sinusoidal, it will be actually decided by the amount of sinusoidal current is flowing. Sinusoidal means fundamental frequency current, AC current flowing from the supply system. That will decide the power, right? So we are having some interesting ideas here. We are having a better idea of power flow. We are having a genuine idea that voltage, when I have a supply voltage AC sinusoidal voltage, I am not assured of getting a sinusoidal current from the source, because I said in the last class also that in electrical engineering, nobody can decide, no source can decide or sink can decide two variables. If somebody decides voltage, the current is decided by the other guy, that is the load guy. We divide generally into two parts, source and load. Okay, though it is a very generic term, load also can have a source. As we know, we are seeing also that load also can have a source, but in a general way, left hand side and right hand side way. If we think that one is source and another is load, if source is deciding the voltage, that means that is what is available to you at the beginning, then the load would decide the current from the source. And since the load is deciding the current from the current to the source, its voltage will be decided, that means load's voltage will be decided by the supply system voltage or the source voltage. This is how these two interact. Okay, so we'll come back to that, how to we'll have to define a few new things. When this is not sinusoidal, we have to define a few different kind of power factors. Okay, so we'll decide that, but see first picture. In power electronics, most important thing is seeing the picture and understanding through the picture, right? So if I have to do what is the voltage across TH1 over the period, if I want to know, let us put a polarity convention of TH1. Let us put a polarity convention. This is this terminal is plus and this terminal is minus. Suppose this is, that means anode is plus, TH1 anode is plus, and that voltage, let us call it VTH1. VTH1 is the voltage across the thyristor with the convention that anode is plus and cathode is minus. So how do I know what is the voltage across the thyristor TH1 during the period? It is easy. First we will do when it is on, because when it is on, irrespective of anything, we don't have to look at any other fellow, any other voltage or anything, any other supply system voltage, etc., etc. I clarified that last time, that we don't have to look at it. We have to simply think that this voltage is reasonably zero. It may be 1 volt or 1.2 volt, but we may consider this to be zero, mostly zero. This voltage is zero because the firing angle thyristor 1, this is alpha and this is pi plus alpha. So during this period, thyristor 1 is on, and thyristor 1 cannot turn off during negative voltage also. Supply voltage negative cannot turn off because it has the burden of ensuring that the continuity in the load current is maintained. So it cannot turn off. it can only be turned off by the helping thyristor. Helping thyristor is TH2 for it, as if this TH2, TH3 are the commutating thyristors or the auxiliary thyristors, right? So which helps TH1 and TH4. But the beautiful thing is that TH2, TH3 will also carry power. So it will commutate TH1 and TH4, but subsequently carry power, right? So that is why it is serving dual purpose. That is why this circuit is so popular, that you don't have any extra circuit burden. You are able to turn off TH1 and TH4 without extra components. You don't need commutating inductor, you don't need commutating capacitor, as you would have required in a DC to DC conversion. Here it is AC to DC conversion. Why this help is coming? This help is coming because here the supply voltage is not constant or continuous. It is changing. That change is giving it this beauty, right? This thing of commutation. So let's see. So here, you know, in one case the thyristor 1 was fired here, thyristor 1 and TH4, and here in this case you have fired thyristor. This is where you have fired thyristor 2 and 3. Here you have fired thyristor 2 and 3. So the moment it has done, what happens is, in almost no time, thyristor 1 realizes the thing that it is good for it to turn off. The condition has been created for it to turn off. Okay, there is no reason why it should continue, because it sees that the circuit in the circuit, it can afford to shed the burden of current. It can afford to shed the burden and give it to TH2. It can understand, right? So, and not only that, it understands that after turn off, you can see that after turn off, its voltage across the thyristor would be negative. This is also very important, because in order to turn off, it requires that subsequent voltage has to be negative. That is the requirement. Okay. Okay, so the moment it turns off, assuming that it turns off, what happens? The subsequent voltage across it is becoming negative, which is nothing but this part of this part of the thing. So let me draw. This is tracing this voltage that it has turned off. So it will just go to this voltage. This voltage is this voltage. This level of voltage, it will go there, and then continue, like this, following the sine pattern till it is turned on again. Till it is turned on. So this is alpha, this is pi plus alpha. Okay, so then again it is alpha here, subsequent alpha, right? So here you see that, let us complete the voltage waveform. So here it is like that. Sorry, not this, 0 to positive. Right, right. So few things you observe. First thing you observe that it is getting negative voltage. So good for the thyristor. It is required to get negative voltage. You would not have got, yeah.
So the last angle will be 2 pi plus alpha, right? The last angle.
2 pi plus alpha, again you reset it to 0. Okay. If you want that way. Okay. It is again I am resetting. It's a periodic thing. I am resetting it again. Okay. 2 pi plus alpha. That is fine. So, so what you are observing is that this voltage is negative. Thyristor TH1, VTH1, it is negative. So this is enabling it to turn off. It is enabling it to turn off. And not only that, it is getting very good voltage for quite some time. It is getting very good voltage, negative voltage from pi plus alpha to pi. This is the zone it is getting negative. It will have no issue with turning off. Which in a way I am maintaining that if you have tried to turn off, suppose for some reason you wanted to turn off at this point, where the voltage, supply voltage is still positive. Suppose you wanted to turn off at this point, where the supply, it would not have turned off. Because assuming that it has turned off, the voltage across it will be positive. So it will again come back. It will not turn off. This is what is commutation failure. If you are trying to turn off at certain point, where assuming that it has turned off, subsequently it will see a positive voltage, then that is not a right turn off condition. It will not turn off, it will come back. This is how to analyze. You assume that it has turned off, look at the voltage that will appear across the thyristor, and you see that the voltage is positive. So that will not turn off because thyristor has a special requirement. What is the special requirement? Do you know what is the special requirement? How is it quantified? That thyristor, once it turns off, what has to happen to the thyristor? It has to get a negative voltage, right? And what is that condition? How long it should get? There is a special parameter for that.
Yeah, for TQ time.
TQ time, right? That is called TQ time. Is there? We have that. Yeah, that here I am showing you one, quickly showing a thyristor characteristics, and in the thyristor characteristics you can see that there is one value called TQ. This is TQ value. Can you see that? Is it? It is too small, or you are able to see that? Your eyes are better than me.
Is visible.
Visible, right? So that TQ is written how much? Can anybody read that? TQ is how much?
110 microsecond.
Yeah, that means it is expecting that negative voltage will be maintained across it for at least 110 microsecond, right? Almost 0.1 millisecond. 0.1 millisecond it has to be maintained. Okay, there are other small parameters, but you may ignore it at this point. There are other small parameter is reverse recovery time. That means you turn off for 4 microsecond, the voltage immediately will not go to zero. Voltage will remain collapsed for 4 microsecond, right? Because that time the stored charge during the conduction state, whatever stored charge was across its junction, this is ultimately a semiconductor, and the junction was that junction which was reverse bias, PN junction, the junction which was reverse bias. Across that, extra charges were accumulated. Now these extra charges have to die out, through recombination. So that time is required. So you may say that when you have exactly turned on the second thyristor means the thyristor which you are turning on to turn off the first thyristor, right? After that also, both the thyristors are on for 4 microseconds. You may assume it that way for practical circuit purpose, because thyristor 1, it could not turn off immediately. It remained in the so-called commutating state. Commutating state implies that its voltage is still 0, but the current is falling. It was taking, let us say, 20 ampere current. It will come down from 20 ampere to 0 ampere, and during this time, the incoming thyristor, the current will build up from 0 to 20 ampere, and this 20 ampere is the load requirement. So the second thyristor is taking the burden from the first thyristor, right? And during this period, that period is 4 microseconds. So that is what is known as reverse recovery. That means a small quick way, if I want to show it, this is the actual thing that will be happening. This will come down and this will go up and this will go up. This is the second thyristor. Thyristor means TH2, and this is current of, this is the current of TH1. This current I am talking about, I TH1, and this is green, this is I TH2, and this thing is the commutation zone. This thing is the commutation zone. When both of them conduct, logically you are saying that both of them are conducting. Okay, so during this time, due to conduction, thyristor 1 voltage is still 0. It was conducting earlier, still 0, and then only it will build to negative voltage. Then only it will jump to negative voltage, some negative voltage. So this time is 4 microsecond in this case, and reverse recovery time we can call it. But after it has become negative, voltage has become negative through the thyristor, you must maintain the negative voltage. You cannot maintain it. The condition should be such that it will be maintained at least for 110 microsecond. 110 microsecond. That which has to be maintained. So this is what is this is VTH1. So that is what is known, that time is known as the TQ time, turn off time, and this time is known as TRR time, that is reverse recovery time. When the current through the thyristor, I have drawn it little simplistically. Actually what will happen, actually what will happen is this current will go not only zero, it will go negative, and this current will go somewhat little positive, and after that it will come back to zero, and this will come back to zero. Yeah, tell me, what is that point?
So like for turning of the thyristor, turning of the thyristor, you should also check, right, that the current through it is less than the holding current of it. That should also be a condition, right?
See, this is where the students overlearn. This holding current and latching current is unnecessary complication. Holding current in a 30 ampere thyristor is 0.3 ampere, let us say. You don't bother. You say that it is zero. For all practical purposes, it is zero. Nobody will conduct it at such a point just less than holding ampere. It will bring down to zero. Okay, so there is no practical implication in a switching circuitry of this holding current and latching current. There is no practical meaning in this. That is so minor current compared to the load current that it doesn't affect. You are conducting a current of 20 ampere, 30 ampere, 20, 30 ampere, and where the number is about 0.3 ampere, it is negligible. It does, nobody considers it. It is 30 ampere to 0.3 ampere is 1%. So that is negligible. You always think that when the thyristor is on, it is taking the load current of whatever the load current value, which is 30 ampere. If your load current is coming down to less than 0.3 ampere, then you may say that it will not remain on. Even if you have given a turn on pulse, it will not remain on. But nobody is expecting it to remain on. For all practical purposes, one will say that 0.3 ampere current is 0 ampere. So nobody expects the thyristor to remain on at just marginally above 0.3 ampere. Holding current implies that if even if in the on state, even if the thyristor current reduces, it cannot reduce beyond 0.3 ampere. After that, thyristor will be turned off naturally. So that is okay. 0.3 ampere is okay for me. It is just 0 ampere current. So this is not at all an important number for you. You can think that everything holding current, latching current are all 0. Okay, and there is certain small difference between latching current and holding current. So you can think that all are 0. Latching current will be slightly more than the holding current, and that difference is also negligible, that you can ignore it. For your circuit, for your switching circuit, where the load is substantially high compared to the current, the thyristor's latching and holding current values. Okay, so let us not bring in unnecessary complications. You take everything to be 0, holding current to be 0, latching current to be 0 for all practical purposes. What you should think is rather more important is to look at TRR and TQ. TRR is the zone when thyristor is shorted. When the thyristor is, both the thyristors are shorted, which is an uncomfortable situation in our case, because you can see that it is shorting the source. If I short both the thyristor, TH1 and TH3, did I say TH1 and TH2 and TH2? Okay, 1 minute. I will just, unnecessary complication I don't want to do. So here I said TH2, I will say TH3, sorry, because TH1's current will be taken by TH3 and TH2's current will be taken by TH4, right? That, see the arrow of the current. So TH3, TH1's current will be taken over by the TH3. But when TH1 and TH3, both of them are conducting, what do you see? The source is shorted, right? So this is slightly uncomfortable situation. That is what you first observe. That is what is more practical. So what happens, normally we also put a small inductor here, or the supply system small inductor will be coming and protecting it. But for that duration, the current will shoot up in the source side, unless there is a significant value of inductor. So that is what you notice. For the time being, please don't complicate. Let us say that TRR we ignore, because I am bringing it. I'm bringing some more important aspect. Okay, and we'll analyze how with in some other cases we'll allow, just learn qualitatively what would be happening. Okay, what is the comfortable zone, what is the uncomfortable? Unless you understand this thing first qualitatively, then just writing equations will not give you any feel, right? So so this is the aspect of it, that TRR which shorts the thermistor. When we will analyze it by taking a small inductance at the source, and what will happen and what will not happen, we'll analyze. But first, what you are supposed to observe, that there is a requirement of TQ here, because there is a requirement of TQ for which this thyristor has to be kept in a state where voltage across it is negative after turn off. Otherwise, the thyristor will switch back to the on state and commutation failure will happen. Okay, right. So here there is not much chance. When alpha is less than let us say 30-40 degree, and alpha is around 30-40-50-60 degree, it is not much of a problem. But you think that alpha has gone, alpha, I said it can go more than 90 degree, right? I said that more than 90 degree, it enters into the rectification in the inversion zone, inverted zone, right? So under that condition, you may see that there is a problem of commutation. The problem of commutation failure may happen. So let's see what happens. Let's draw it and see. So this is the voltage, and what I have done is I have fired it. This is 0 degree reference. I have fired, this is the alpha now. Alpha is very high, right? So alpha 1, this is the thyristor has been fired here. One thyristor, that is TH1 and TH1 and TH4 are fired here. This is for TH1, TH4 to be fired here. Okay, so what we know is that what will be the current TH1, TH4, and the second one will be at this point, right? At this point, that will be TH2, TH3, right? So this duration is phi. This duration is pi. We are taking alpha greater than 90 degree situation. So if that is the pi, what will be the current? Current I am drawing quickly. Current will be through the supply system. How it is? It is something like this, right? It is something like this, and then negative part. Negative part is it goes there. Value is more or less equal, and I should go to, yeah, I should go as if I should go to like this, like this, like this. There will be a current here. You can think that this current is jumping here and then continuing, right? This is the current through the AC source, IAC. This is the current through the AC source. So positive has come. Since you have fired alpha, you have chosen an alpha which is greater than 90 degree. Look at it first. First look at it. What it means. Means that most of the negative voltage, this time the voltage is negative. Most time voltage is negative, but current is positive. Most of the time. I am not saying all the time. I am saying most of the time the voltage, source voltage is negative. It is negative, but the current is positive. What does it imply? It implies that source is receiving power. Because it's negative voltage, current is positive. That means it is receiving power. And who is giving the power? It is given by the load. That's why it is called inverter mode of operation. Look at this portion. Look at the other portion. You see that here the current is negative, but the source voltage is positive. So again, on an average, not all the time, you may say not all the time. Here you can see that here in this small zone, you can see that both source voltage and current are positive. But on an average, this zone is dominating. The zone when the current is positive but the voltage is dominating, and the zone when current is negative and voltage is positive is also dominating. This is the second current that is also dominating. The voltage is positive here, and the current is negative here, dominating. So most of the time power is negative. So we'll say that the average power, if I take this period, this as the period, average power is negative. That means inverter operation. This is an inverter operation. Okay, average power is negative in the other cycle also. This pi cycle, next pi cycle, both the cycles average power is negative. So overall, this is an inverter operation. This is an inverter operation for the converter, which implies that there is a good thing. We are having flexibility to get here and there. We are getting flexibility to take power. It's a bidirectional. Another word is bidirectional power flow. This is called possible. By changing firing angle, I can go, but I am not changing the current. As far as the load current is concerned, it is not changing. Understand that this is happening due to change of voltage polarity. Okay, so in the next AC side, AC side, you are giving firing at a greater than 90-degree angle. What does it imply in the DC side? Can anybody say what does it imply at the DC side? If the average power, average voltage is negative as dictated by the firing angle, what is it implying? How is it balanced? How it has to be satisfied in the Kirchhoff law? It should be satisfied by what? Vc should be negative now, because otherwise it doesn't satisfy. Because the equation still remains in a generic way, capital V rect is equal to ID into R plus generic way. This is Vc. Now, since this has ID into R is a small component, ID is greater than 0. This is much greater than this. This is a negative component, and magnitude wise V rect is much greater. So therefore, this Vc must be less than 0. This equation can be satisfied if it is Vc less than 0. So for such load, when you are doing this firing angle alpha, if you want to have a steady state operation, it is a steady state analysis, then you must have Vc less than 0. That is what it is saying, right? Whether that happens or not, it may happen in some situation. Like it may happen in some situations like a DC machine where the speed reversal has happened. Because DC machine, the EMF is K phi into N. If you don't change the flux but change the speed, then K phi N is negative, and therefore this may happen. Okay, so this is another steady state situation. However, what is the more important thing from the device point of view is that you have known that now thyristor 1 and thyristor 4 are conducting in this zone. So what was the voltage across thyristor during this zone? Voltage was 0. Thyristor 1 and thyristor 4 voltage was 0, right? And then the moment you have turned off, what is the voltage across the thyristor? The thyristor voltage is now this much, and then it will remain negative only for this duration. It is remaining negative only for what duration? It is remaining negative only for the duration pi minus alpha, where alpha is greater than 90 degree, right? So what may happen is that you may violate the TQ condition under this situation. TQ value, TQ may be violated. TQ should be greater than 110 microsecond in this specific case, may be violated. Let me calculate and see whether at what alpha it will violate. Okay, 110 microsecond, I have to convert it into an equivalent angle. So 20 millisecond is 10 millisecond is 180 degree. So it is 110 divided by 10 millisecond. So that is 10,000 into 180. So it is suggesting that it is not suggesting very big recognition. So this corresponds to an angle of 1.98 degrees. I hope you have understood how I have done. So what is it meaning? That negative voltage should be there for at least 1.98 degrees. Okay, this is a good value, good thyristor. Some cases this value comes out to be about 10 degree also. Some thyristors. The specification I have taken is that of a high quality thyristor. Some other thyristors are there where this TQ value is reasonably high. It is not so small as 110 microsecond, right? In fact, one word brings to another word. Where TQ values are so less, they are called inverter grade thyristor. Inverter grade thyristor. grade, GRAD, grade thyristor. And where the TQ values are low, they are called rectifier gate thyristors. Inverter gate thyristors means they are conducive for inverter operation. This is an inverter operation. And the rectifier thyristors are TQ values are so high that it is not conducive for this thing. So in this case, this requirement is that firing angle alpha, as if I cannot go beyond greater than that means about 2 degree I might subtract, so I cannot go one greater than 178 degree approximately, and greater than not allowed, not allowed. Okay, are you getting the point I'm making? Because the negative voltage duration is so small. Achha. Another interesting part probably you should have noticed earlier, that thyristor is on here. Thyristor is off with negative voltage, but thyristor is also off with positive voltage. That's why thyristor is a better device in such applications than MOSFET, because in the off state MOSFET will block the positive voltage. This is blocking positive voltage and this is blocking negative voltage. You can see more here, more in the first part, more will be there. You will see that. You will see that. You see that it is blocking negative voltage in the rectifier kind of operation. The thyristor red color waveform is blocking huge amount for lot of duration. It is blocking negative voltage. But a MOSFET cannot block a negative voltage because its body diode will contact. So this is why you are having a simplest device, an unique device. Okay, a unique device which has the ability to block both forward and positive and negative voltage. Right? Right. So I think I have explained it well enough for you to know the subtle parts of it, of a thyristor converter and rectifier and this mode of operation. But now I will go to another thing. I will come to rectifier mode of operation a little later again and show you some application of it. But that will I will take I'll require a little extra thing. So first, let us stop here now. We have understood that firing angle alpha and all that, but maybe I can take it like that. Let's take now. Let's take another page. Let's take another page. So you have understood that. Let me write it in a nice plot. Our operation. Let us say this is V operation and this is I operation. So we have seen that at present, V means the Vrect or VD, Vrect. Let me call it Vrect to match it, and ID. We have now been able to operate with positive ID always. The topology that we have described, positive ID. We are not able to go to negative ID. So our zone of operation is positive ID, but we are able to operate with positive and negative Vrect. So this is quadrant 1 and this is quadrant, let us say we call it quadrant 4. Quadrant 4. So we are now operating in quadrant 1 and quadrant 4. This is rectification and this is inversion. Can we not operate in quadrant 2 and 3? 2 and 3. That means what is the requirement for quadrant 2 and 3? In the quadrant 2 and 3, what we have to do is we have to create a situation for negative current. We have to create a situation for negative current. Okay. So how do I create negative current? Is very easy. I do a thyristor. I put anti-parallel thyristors to it. Right. So I construct a bridge. With anti-parallel thyristors to it. Let me call it TH1 and let me call it TH1 dash. Okay, let me call it, I had called it TH2. I will call it TH2 dash. I'm just doing an anti-parallel, making the switch versatile, making the switch 4-quadrant, which can take both positive and negative. This has become a 4-quadrant switch because it can take current in both the directions with the combinations, not the single one. single one, but with a combination TH1 and plus TH1 dash. This combination, it can take current in both the directions and voltage, it can block voltage in both the directions. So this has become a 4-quadrant switch. Earlier it was only 2-quadrant switch. So now then I draw.
Sir,
Yeah.
how many thyristors will you have now total?
8. Total 8. Total 8.
Sir, can you explain that part again? Why you used anti-parallel thyristors? That part.
Okay. That part I have used. That part I have used because I wanted to create a situation where the current here can be bidirectional, can be this direction ID or that direction ID. I wanted to create a situation where this current can be bidirectional, right? So in order to have a bidirectional current, you can see for, let me put 2 colors. One color is green and the other color is blue. For the green color current, I must have a consistent topology. So I need thyristor current to be this direction. I need the thyristor current, as we have seen that the thyristor currents are going like this for green color and it will come back like that. Okay, similarly for thyristor, this is I'm doing TH4. Let me write it TH4 and TH4 dash. This is TH3 and this is TH3 dash. I need this. That's what I was describing, and I had shown that it will be having current positive, but V rectifier voltage, that is this voltage, V rect, this rectifier voltage can have positive and negative values based on the firing angle alpha. Alpha will produce a average negative voltage V rectifier or average positive voltage, right? That's what we are seeing. But the current, I cannot have a different direction. So now I would like to create a situation when this current can be negative as well. Current can be negative. This is a 4-quadrant. It has a requirement. It has practical requirement, I will tell you. Let us first see the topology. So if I need a current here, how can I do this consistently, this current, negative current, unless I have a switch which is capable of taking current in this direction. That means, let me put it in red color. Sorry, let me put it in red color. If I have a current here, how can I make it consistent? Current come to from the source, unless I have a direction of current here, consistent current. Then the current will come here. AC side, it will come, the current will come. And then you see this current will go through this, come back and flow through this, return back. That is how this current will be returning back, right? So I may create a situation. Okay, alpha is equal to let us say 30 degree. Okay, so alpha is equal to 30 degree and current direction and green. Then I create a V rectifier. Let me put this way. Let me put another color. Alpha equal to 30 degree. Example. Okay, and firing you do interesting, and ID, let us say, is greater than 0. What you have done is that you have fired TH1 and TH4 and positive bridge. We call it positive bridge. TH1 TH4 combination. This combination is called known as positive bridge. And TH1 TH4 and subsequently also TH2 and TH3. You must understand. I am not excluding them, but the negative bridge is will be alpha is equal to 30 degree, ID greater than 0, and the sequence that will be fired is the thyristor that will be fired is TH1 dash, TH4 dash, and TH2 dash, and TH3 dash, right? So what will happen if I do that? If ID less than 0 here, ID is less than 0, ID is less than 0. If load is such the thing that it is, I said no, one verify dictates another thing. So this time load is dictating that the current is less than 0. For whatever reason, you don't care. At the moment, you don't care. For whatever reason, the load, and it can be. Load current is negative. If something is positive, why it cannot be negative? So requirement will always be there for a negative current. So what will be happening? So what will be happening is that if alpha is equal to 30 degree, you get, see, look at this, voltage polarity is just cos alpha. So you will get V rect. Rect is equal to still a positive quantity. Because alpha is 30 degree, you will get a positive quantity of 2 Vm by pi cos 30 degree. Cos 30 degree. In this case, ID is negative, but you will get V rect is equal to 2 Vm by pi cos 30 degree. This time voltage is both of them is positive. This is greater than 0, greater than 0. This is also greater than 0. The only difference is current is different. And to make the current flow in a different way, you require another thyristor. Another thyristor. For the current direction rate, you need a consistent thyristor. That is what is provided by the dash TH1 dash, TH2 dash, TH3 dash, and TH4 dash. So this is a negative bridge. This is called as the negative bridge. Means it will be consistent with the load current flowing. I have divided a negative bridge. Yeah, I will write it as, this is known as the negative bridge. It will be consistent with the load current. It has to be consistent with the load current. But you are getting flexibility now. If alpha is less than 90 degree, you produce positive voltage and you can produce positive and negative current. When alpha is greater than 90 degree, you produce positive voltage, a negative voltage, and you can produce greater than or less than 90 degree. So you are coming in both directions.
Sir?
Yeah.
So but in the second case, when ID is less than 0, in that case, V rectifier will be equal to Vc minus ID into R, right? In this last case, when ID is less than 0.
Yes, that will be that. Here the equation will be that if you try to write the DC side equation, you will write minus IDR plus Vc. Vc is a generic thing. It can be positive and negative. It has to match this equation. ID into R is big. R into R is equal to V rect. It will be V rect. And here it will be ID into R plus Vc is equal to V rect. V rect. So accordingly, Vc will be there. Accordingly, this is positive. This is positive. So you can see that here Vc is greater than V rect. And here Vc is less than V rect. That will happen. As per Kirchhoff's law is always true. And this is minor voltage. Compared to all the thing, it is minor, maybe 2 volts. Out of 50 volt, 2 volts. But you should also understand it correctly. Yeah, I don't deny that. So that this time the Vc has to go slightly up, because current is pushed. And also common sense. Common sense, you see that since the current is going in the reverse direction, voltage has to be in the other direction. Where is that my? What is the circuit? Yeah. Since the current has to go in this direction, this side voltage has to be greater than this side voltage. When the current has to go in the green direction, the rectified voltage has to be greater than Vc voltage. That is always true. Okay, so that will happen. That will happen. So now you are bringing in a flexibility to create a completely 4-quadrant operation, where you can afford to create a positive voltage and positive current, which is essentially a rectification mode, where you can create negative voltage and negative current, which is again a rectification mode. Because the power is again, this is also rectification. Negative voltage and negative current, where alpha is greater than 0. right? And this is what you are creating: inversion, rectification, inversion. This is inversion. Where voltage is positive and current is negative, you are creating that inversion. Where voltage is positive and current is positive, rectification; voltage negative, current negative, rectification; and current positive, voltage negative is inversion. 4 quadrant operation. This is called most versatile thing. 4 quadrant of operation is there. So what people now, you may this is what we are learning from the circuit's capability point of view. You may now want to know when and how we would like to use it. That is a totally legitimate question, but it requires a little bit of extra because the time is almost, I'm reaching 11. I have to show you what, but you can think also. You can think in terms of DC machine. In that case of DC machine, just one word I will say, so that you get a thinking zone. In the case of a DC machine, suppose DC machine, you just think it this way. You will itself be answering it. When, let us say, speed is n is 1000 RPM, right? For that, we require a back EMF is equal to, let us say, 200 volt. Corresponding to that, whatever flux has been there, flux has been set by a coil. That is something, some 0.12 Weber or something, Weber turns or something. Okay, E is equal to 2, right? Now, ID is positive, and ID is equal to, let us say, 20 ampere. 20 ampere. This is the zone of quadrant 1, first quadrant. Now, you think another. This is motoring, we call it motoring. Because power is coming from the AC to DC and going to the shaft. DC machine is taking power, giving somebody, no, the mechanical shaft, we're giving somebody. So that is what the power flow. Then DC machine can operate in another way in a steady state, that is reverse. That means N is equal to minus 1000 RPM. You are rotating the machine in the reverse direction, and you have generated speed corresponding to 200 volt because flux is not changed. Flux is equal to same value, okay, minus 200 volt, and you are taking a current of minus 20 ampere, right? This again means power is equal to 4000 watt, which means again motoring zone. And again power is flowing to AC to DC to shaft, mechanical. Only thing is reverse motoring. We call it reverse motoring. Just speed reverse, but motoring. It has to again give power to the load. It has going to the reverse direction and giving power to the load. So that is what, again, AC DC to shaft power flow. But when you are having N is equal to this N is equal to 1000 RPM, E is equal to 200 volt, but I is equal to minus 20 ampere. This is what is equal to regeneration mode. Regeneration, or the you can tell is that it is like a motoring word. If I do, then I will use the braking word, braking mode. Or this is from the motor point of view, we are right, or the machine point of view. Machine is now braking mode, and from the circuit point of view, thyristor converter point of view, we will say it is in the inversion mode. Inversion, it is working like an inverter because the power is flowing from the shaft to DC to AC, right? So this is the and similarly you can create another one as well, minus 200 volt and plus 20 ampere. You can create another mode. This is E is equal to positive and I is equal to negative. E is equal to positive, I is equal to negative means which mode, which zone? E is equal to positive and I is equal to negative. So it is mode 2, generation inversion 2, second mode. Second thing is this. This is the second second quadrant operation. This was first quadrant operation. This was first quadrant operation. This was third quadrant operation. This was third quadrant operation. This is the second quadrant operation, and similarly I can create a fourth quadrant operation. Fourth quadrant operation, where E is equal to minus 200 volt and ID is equal to plus 20 ampere. So it is also breaking mode. Breaking mode for the machine point of view, inversion mode from the thyristor converter point of view, and power is flowing from the shaft to DC to AC. Okay, so think about it, and if there is any issue, please feel free to tell me in the next class or write to me an email. Thank you very much for listening. I'm stopping here.